This is ASCP's From Zero to Hero, making a winning website for pathology education. Your presenter today is Dr. Derek Chen, and he is going to lead you through some fabulous education on how to create a fabulous pathology website. We are recording today's session. Feel free, if you have any questions at any time, to post in the chat. Wow, 17 degrees Celsius. We got 76. I'm loving seeing all these temperatures from around the world. Welcome, everyone. And I am going to go ahead and hand it off to Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen, they are all yours.
All right, thank you, Christina. Thanks everybody for joining. I'm glad there's a lot of interest in this particular topic. I am the medical director of Clin Micro at my institution at UW Health. So the examples that I'll be providing are related to clinical microbiology, but the concept can be applied outside of that, pretty much to any subspecialty of path and even outside of medicine. I'm sure you guys interact with different websites all the time of varying purposes. And so even though my examples are micro, just kind of think about how you can tailor what I'm showing you to your specific situations. I don't have any financial relationships to disclose. I will be discussing specific companies or products that I've used to create these websites. I don't have any ties to those companies. All right, so just starting off, why build a website in the first place for education? I'm sure many of you already have your educational materials, so why bother creating a website? Just kind of a simplification of how education occurs. It's these kind of three different areas. So first you have your instructional materials or your facts or the knowledge or whatever it is that you're trying to get into the learner. And so that's represented by the cylinder. And then you deliver it somehow. And we'll talk about the different delivery modes. And then finally, once it gets to the learner, we'll briefly talk about learning styles and how those might be impacted by using a website. But just we're just going to start in this order. So starting off with instructional materials, and you guys are familiar with this. You've used all of these things, I'm sure, but there's different ways that you can have instructional materials. And so textbooks, like a classic just book that you would read from cover to cover if you're trying to learn something, or if you're trying to teach students, you would give them a textbook. When I was a Path resident, they gave all of us, we could choose actually if we wanted Rosai or Sternberg. And so we all had our 2-volume textbooks that we'd use, but also study guides, handouts, things like that. Those are all like print, real classic ways of having educational materials. More recently, there's just audio only types of educational materials. So podcasts are super common. Even in pathology, where you think it's a very visual specialty, I'm sure whatever subspecialty you're in, you could find podcasts on that particular topic. And so that's kind of an audio only way of learning. Also, lecture recordings, if you're just listening to the audio, that would be an audio way of presenting things. And this, I don't typically learn myself through this way, audio only, but there are cases, and I've had trainees say that they use like these podcasts where they're very valuable, and some areas that would be like if they're driving. So you obviously don't want them watching a video with audio. So if you're driving, you can listen to audio only and learn that way. Or like when they're working out, if they're at the gym or like running or something like that, then having audio only is a way that they can continue to learn while they're doing those activities. Visual, so in Path, we're very visually oriented. So images, charts, glass slides, those are visual. And then combining those. So lots of educational videos. So even this, if it's recorded, this will be an audio visual type of thing. And then finally, electronic. So electronic or digital is basically taking any of these formats and digitizing it. But it really is more than just that. So an example would be like a textbook. You can have a hard copy textbook, or you can access that digitally online. But it's not the same because that digital version of it has additional functionality. One of which, for instance, that I really like is that it's searchable. So in the past, if you just had a hard copy textbook and you wanted to look up something on a specific topic, you'd have to try to find it in the table of contents or go to the index, and it would, list like 10 different pages that I might possibly on, and you'd have to keep flipping back and forth and try to find if that textbook is discussing what it is you're trying to look up. But in electronic format, you can actually just search it. Pretty much all the digital textbooks have a search function, and you can find those areas very quickly. So it's much faster. So just because it's electronic, it's not a one-to-one conversion, and it only does what a print textbook would do. There's actually additional functionality for going to an electronic version. So that's the same with the website too. It's not just that you're converting all of these different types of materials into a website. There's actually additional functionality that comes from it being within a website. So that was kind of the types of educational materials. There's different ways that can be delivered. And since the pandemic, we've become much more familiar with these different modes of delivery. And even with this webinar right now, it's much more commonplace that we'll have these other ways of delivering materials. But this is just kind of one way that these things can be classified into. So face-to-face was that classic type of presentation. So that'd be like in a lecture hall where you have a single instructor with a lot of students, and it's happening real time and it's not being recorded. So that's face to face. But also in Path, like that occurs in other settings too. It's not just the lecture hall, but like if you're, at the microscope or something like that, that'd be face to face. Online synchronous is it's happening real time, but it's only online. So what we're doing right now is online synchronous. It's not in person. It's just virtual and it's happening real time. Since this is being recorded, if someone accesses it later and isn't watching it now, that would be online asynchronous or virtual asynchronous. So it's a virtual thing that's happening, but it's not real time. Blended synchronous basically is online and face-to-face happening at the same time. So it's real time, but you can access it virtually. And if I had, for instance, people in my office right now, then this would be blended synchronous because I'd have that in-person component as well. Hybrid is kind of like a mixture, like if I have some in-person sessions during a course and then I have some recordings that I want my students to listen to, that'd be hybrid. And then this is kind of what I strive for, and what would be good is what's called hybrid flexible or high flex, if you guys have heard of that term, but it's basically everything combined. So it's something that is virtual and in person and synchronous. So it kind of would be this blended synchronous. So it'd be like what I said, we're doing what we're doing now, plus if I were in a lecture hall giving this talk, I could have people live, but also it'd be recorded and the people can access it later. So it allows the learner to choose however they want to learn. And ideally, it would be seamless. And so if I was in a lecture hall giving this talk and the student was like, I don't feel so well, I want to go home and watch this, they could leave right in the middle, go home and watch it virtually. If they're at home, they're like, I just can't watch this at all anymore. They could turn it off and then pick it up later asynchronously. And so a website, just to kind of dispel that potential myth, when I mention websites, some people think I'm talking about virtual education. That's not what this is about. This is about how to house your content and how people can access the content. So it's really this first kind of cylinder that we're talking about. The delivery mode, if it's a website, you can actually do any of these, and that's what I do. I have my educational content all inside of a website. And depending on how I'm teaching, I just access it all through the website. So sometimes, for instance, I'll have a med student that's doing a 1 week rotation and I might give them some face-to-face one-on-one lectures. I still do that through the website just because it's easier for me. I'll show you an example of that website later. But it still allows me to do this face-to-face teaching. I just pull it up through the website. And then finally, learning styles. So there's many different theories and models for learning styles. This is probably one that many people are familiar with, this VARK model. So people saying that they're visual learners or oral learners or verbal learners or kinesthetic learners. But there's actually quite a lot of different models for learning styles. This is like the more common ones, but there's lots of different ways that people can be classified as learners. And the point that I want to make is not necessarily a discussion about the myth of learning styles and how you don't, people being taught in their preferred learning style doesn't necessarily lead to more academic achievement. The point of this is more just to say that, again, the website, it doesn't hinder you. If you want to teach, or if you're currently teaching towards learning styles, like if you're knowing that your students are visual and you want to teach to that specific way, the website can allow you to do that, or it can allow you to teach in all these other ways. Again, it's just how you're housing the material, but how you present it and how you deliver it, that's up to you. All right, so a website though is digital, and digital can be new to people, and people can be uncomfortable with it. And so especially developing a website, not a lot of people necessarily have knowledge about how to do that or have exposure to that. And that's essentially what the point of this whole lecture is anyways, is to provide you that exposure and show you just how easy it is to do this. But you may have heard of these terms in terms of people's comfort with digital or going to digital. So digital dinosaur is basically someone who just is uncomfortable with digital technologies and doesn't really want to incorporate them. Digital adopters is probably where most of us are and most of where you are, at least as it relates to building a website. You've obviously self-selected and decided to attend this webinar, and so you're thinking about using a digital technology, a website, to enhance your educational materials. And then finally, digital native would be someone who is just kind of born or very familiar with these technologies. So it's like if everyone were building websites all the time anyway. So it's like our modern day like texting. People don't have to think, should I text or not text? Everyone just it's something that people are naturally do, or emails, things like that. It's not something that you're like, well, should I start emailing, and do I need to learn how to email, and how do I, you know, teach someone else how to receive the emails and that kind of thing. It's a native is basically like it's already in your it's part of your lifestyle. So this can be a little more nuanced. Here on the right side, I just kind of showed what I showed previously. So like the dinosaur adopter and native, but more, I guess, kindly put, instead of calling people digital dinosaurs, in this model, they call them digital immigrants. So they're basically people born before the introduction of digital technology, and the term they still use is digital native up here. And what I want to point out is there's us, or the educators, the people that will be building the websites, and you may fall on any point in the spectrum. So you might be kind of uncomfortable about building it, or you're very eager to build a website. But you also have to think about the user as well. And many of our users, or for educators, many of the users are going to probably be students or trainees that are younger than you. So you might assume that they're digital natives and they should be very comfortable with websites. But I just want to point out that even among digital natives, it is a spectrum. So in this model, they call people that are digital natives but don't want to deal with any new technologies avoiders. Where there's minimalists, so they're comfortable with using technologies, but they don't want to have to learn all these different new technologies if they don't have to. They only want to learn what they think is important or what they like or what is most interesting. And then there's enthusiastic participants. So if you tell your students, "Hey, I got a new website," these students are like, "Yeah, that's awesome. Let's take a look at it." And so there is a spectrum, and when you build a website, again, just don't assume that just because your students are younger that they're all very familiar with websites and know how to navigate it and are happy to do so. So just keeping that in mind will help you develop a website that you want to try to think about how its usability is, and things like that for people that still may not want to use a website or work with materials that way. All right, so coming to our advantages and disadvantages of a website, I kind of mentioned one is that making things digital, like the textbook, it allows additional advantages that aren't just, a one-to-one conversion. And these are some additional things. So a website allows that material to be accessible by anyone at any time. And so I'm going to show you some examples of websites I have, and I'm going to show you them through, my computer, but you could always just pull it up in your own browser and access it and navigate it yourself, even while I'm speaking. And this includes different devices. So probably, I'm assuming many of you are using a computer and a full-size monitor to be listening to this webinar, but some people might be using their cell phone or tablet or other devices. And that's the same with the website. If you have your educational content there, people can access it in any way that they choose. I had some courses that I was teaching that I made websites, and I was surprised that a couple of students were actually taking the course using their cell phones because they were like traveling or whatever it was. And so that's something to think about, is that your users may be having different sizes of screens and hardwares and things like that. And so, to take that into consideration. But that is a big benefit of having your stuff as a website. Also, another big benefit is that the information that's on the website you can update it real time, and so your users will have the most current information anytime they access that site. So, for instance, like I have, and I'll show you this. I have all my lectures uploaded onto my website. And so if there's any, like in microbiology, names are changing all the time. Like you guys may have learned it as Propionibacterium acnes, and now you may know that it's called Cutibacterium acnes. So that's just one example. But when that name change happened, I could just go right into my presentation title, and the title of that slide, I just changed it to Cutibacterium acnes, and then I'm done. So anytime a student accesses that presentation when they're trying to study, they'll have the most up-to-date information. It's also easy to distribute and scalable. That's pretty obvious. Anyone who has internet connection and in a browser and computer can just, or device, electronic device can access the website and they can learn that way. If it were textbooks, you'd have to buy lots of textbooks. If they were printouts, I'd have to print out all these things and to give them to different students. And if I have a huge class or more students than I expected, then I'd have to print additional ones or people would have to share. I'm sure you guys experience all of that in the past whenever there were actually hard copies of things. So with a website, I can have as many people as I want or as few people as I want. It can't be lost or misplaced. So, that's pretty obvious too. Like with textbooks, they can be lost or people can take them home or whatever. And so they might not be able to find it, but with the website, even if the user forgets the web address, I can always just remind them what it is and there they go. And also now computers are with internet are already in use, especially in medical centers. And so these are just some examples that people, I'm sure we're touching on some things here that you use all the time. So right now everybody's using Zoom. So I know that all of you will be able to access my educational content, which I'll show you. Or if you're using WebEx, those kinds of things. So you don't have to change what you're doing. You're already using the computer. You already have a screen. You would just be able to access those materials versus like a textbook, you may have one sitting next to you, but now that's something I'd have to go get it off my shelf. And then I have multiple things that I'm doing with as opposed to just being able to participate in the Zoom and also have like the website up on the side. There are disadvantages to the website though. As I mentioned, the users do have to remember how to access the website. I'll tell you how to make this really easy. You want a simple URL, and so people can memorize it. But even then, people may not memorize it and they may forget. So typically with my trainees, I always email the web address. So they'll have it in their emails to reference. So then, of course, anytime they ask, I'll tell them what it is. And like I said, I use a URL shortener to make the website name at least really easily memorizable. They also have to get used to a new interface. So everybody, if you guys do design your own websites, I'm sure they're all going to look different. And so the interface is going to be different. How to navigate it is going to be different. And so people just have to get used to that. For the most part, I would say most websites are designed relatively similarly. And so you want to stay within those boundaries, and then that acclimation period will be shorter. But if you make something very strange, then it could lead to this next bullet point. So if you make a poorly designed website, it could be a bad experience for the user, for the learner. And also if it's bad enough, it can interfere with their education because they're too busy trying to find the materials, or if you tell them like you need to do these activities and they can't find them on the website, then they may not do them and be prepared. Users also may not be aware of changes that are made. So this is kind of the counterpoint to that you can make your changes real time. So like the example I said where I could change the name of Propacnes to Cutibacterium acnes. I can do that, but then if someone remembered it as Propionibacterium and they, studied it and memorized all the facts on that slide, and suddenly I changed that title, they may not be aware that I made that change. And if they're not aware of the nomenclature change, if they're looking through the slide deck, they could be like, where's my Propionibacterium? I thought it was here and now it's no longer here. And so that's just something to be aware of. If you're making significant changes, you may want to either alert your users or include like the old information and say that you made a change or something like that. Also, since people are accessing it differently, their experience may differ based on their hardware. So not everyone has, top of the line computers, or their monitors may be different sizes, their internet speeds may be different. And so that will impact how the website functions for them potentially. And then technological issues, since it is digital, since it does rely on the internet, if it's a website, you can run into these issues. I myself, for the website that I'm going to show you, both Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge, they blocked my website. If you've ever I'm sure you've all encountered it, but like when you're surfing the web, sometimes you'll click a site and then Google's like, or Google Chrome will say, this is a potentially malicious site, and then it doesn't like you go to that site. So that's what happened with my educational site. It was blocked by both of them, and my institution blocked it as a site that you, I guess, shouldn't visit. And since I used a URL shortener, that company also blocked the site. And I don't know why. I have my thoughts. I can show you. There's a form I have that basically it's like a contact form and it asks for their email and their name. And so I think it was being flagged because those like Google and Microsoft were thinking that I'm collecting people's personal information, and so it was blocked that way. But it was easy to get around. I just contacted the companies and they were all unblocked within a week. But that could be a problem, especially if you're in the middle of teaching a class and suddenly they block your site. Then that's obvious an issue that would occur because you have a website versus some other method of sharing your educational materials. And then also, if you create a login for your websites, there could be login issues. The users can forget their usernames or passwords, or if there's an issue with the site itself. Like I did have a login on the site that I'm going to show you, and that was through Wix, the website builder. And for whatever reason, that company was having issues with the login, and so my residents weren't able to create accounts. And so I eventually just removed that whole feature. But that's just something to be aware of as well. So, kind of the exciting part, what are use cases of having a website? And so these are different things that I've used. So, for instance, directions to your lab or to your office, including your contact information. For virtual meetings, you can have like persistent virtual meeting links there, so people can visit the website, and if they want to go to that meeting, they could just click on that link there. If there's introductory or background material you're constantly saying for new trainees that just start a rotation, you can put that in the website. Pictures of key staff members, course materials, presentations, links to other resources, forums, and anything else. So these are, when you're starting off, it might be daunting. And I'll show you an example where I have all of this stuff together in one website. And so don't think that you have to start there. It can be something as simple as I'm constantly telling people how to get to my office. Like anytime there's a new trainee, I have to, many of us in Path, our offices aren't like right next to the entrance of the hospital. You're probably, buried somewhere far away, and so am I. And so it's kind of hard to tell people how to get to your office. And for the longest time, for each trainee, I would send an email. They're like, how do I get to your office? And I have to like type a paragraph telling them how to get to my office. And I was like, I'm just going to put this on the website, and they'll I'll direct them to the website, and it'll just tell them how to get to my office. So this website can really be as a starting point. You can think of anything that is kind of repetitive that you have to keep doing over and over. Can you put that in a website format to make it easier for you? And then it's also better for the person on the other end. And I'll show you how a website can make that look much more streamlined. All right, so I've talked enough about that. Can I show you guys some examples? Of course I can. So this is the website I was referring to, and I'm going to pull over my browser here. So I'm actually going to go to the website. But this is my main one that I use for education. And for microbiology, I have, or at least in my position here, there's a bunch of different trainees that I get at all different levels. So I get graduate students and med students. Path residents have, are consistent flow of path residents, and also ID fellows and pharmacy residents. So there's all different kinds of people, and they um, might need different types of materials or just different focuses. But for the most part, with clinical microbiology and with a lot of pathology, even though these people have different backgrounds, a lot of them don't really know the specialty at all. So many of them are kind of starting from a similar starting point with some differences in what their background knowledge is. And so that's kind of one of the reasons why I created this website. And so I'll first be showing, so hopefully you can see this address bar up here. What I'll be showing you is that I use a URL shortener. So what I've created this site to be called is bit.ly/UW micro rotation. So again, I'm trying to make it easy for the learner to just memorize what it is. Bitly is a company, so that's kind of unfortunate if you don't like that branding there. But UW micro rotation is wording that I use. So this is how I tell people to get to the website. It's easy to remember. But once I press enter, you'll see it'll expand to what the website URL actually is. So I press enter, and this is actually what the website is. It's not horrible either, but this is much harder to remember. I don't remember it myself. I can't remember to tell someone to go to dchen82.wixsite.com. Like I just can't remember that. I can tell people to go to bit.ly/UW micro rotation. And this is, like I said, how I access this content myself. Anytime I'm giving presentations, I can, whether I'm logged in, whether someone else is logged in, whether it's their laptop or their device or whatever, I can just tell them to go to bit.ly/UW micro-rotation, go to presentations, and I can present to them right there. But I'm just going to kind of go over what this website looks like and different things that I put in here. And the point of this, again, isn't to tell you how to teach clinical microbiology. Again, think about how this can be applied to what specialties you're teaching or whatever your needs are. Again, it doesn't have to be a full-fledged educational website. If there's just certain things like orientation materials and how to get to the lab or how to get to your office, that might be good enough for you, and that could be very helpful. So one thing I want you to notice, hopefully you can see that there's this banner up here. It says this site was designed with the Wix.com website builder. So this is annoying to me. It kind of always stays up here, but I'm using the free version of Wix, and that's just how it is. I like to use free softwares, and so sometimes there's just downsides to that. You could always pay them, I guess, and have the banner be removed. There's other potential benefits to paying, like you could have a customized URL and things like that. But again, I like free, and so that's why I have this banner here. But that's something to think about when you're choosing, because there's other builders which we'll talk about. Wix isn't the only one; it's just the one I happen to use. And if there's things that are annoying enough to you, you may not want to go with that builder. Like I said, this is kind of annoying to me, but I decided to use Wix anyways. So going down into the website here, you can see I have like these little logos. One thing, many of you, if you're at an academic center, I'm sure you have this dual institution type of thing that trainees have to learn, where you have an academic center and you have the healthcare system. And so these are just like they take you to the main pages of those for us. So our healthcare system is UW Health. So that will hyperlink right into this main page for UW Health. And then this will take them to the website for the university. And so that's just a quick way that I can just help, especially people that are new and they don't know all these different websites. This is how it can help basically consolidate all of them into this single website that I've created. So as opposed to me sending an email with like 10 different links and saying, click here for this, click here for that, I just have it all in this one website. Also here up at the top, you can see this navigation panel. So welcome is my introductory material. Rotations is the different people. So like I mentioned, there's a lot of different people that I teach. Sometimes there's even outside visitors that don't fall into these categories. And so I have a slightly different curriculum for each of them. And but for the most part, I'm using the same types of resources. Like I can use similar presentations, and then under the resources tab, which I'll show you, there's similar resources that they use. But depending on what their prior knowledge is, then I kind of tailor each one of these to them. All right, so another thing about the website, like I said, it's kind of more than just a one-to-one type of thing. Here I'm trying to make this, so this is a hyperlink that I'll send to someone, like if they're new to the rotation, I'm like, welcome to the lab, and then visit this website, and then we'll meet and have an orientation meeting. But in this website, I say like, greetings, fellow micro enthusiasts, and then I have these pictures. These are just stock images, and it just kind of makes it seem more exciting. So this is something I would never do in person. Like I would never in person tell a trainee, hi, fellow micro enthusiasts, thanks for coming here. It just is unnatural to me. But I think having it in a website makes the rotation seem more inviting, and it just sits here permanently. So I type it here once And whoever visits this hopefully has like an exciting and positive impression of the microlab without me having to do anything and without me having to say like weird stuff like this. Another thing, I'm going to kind of scroll to the bottom. I have other animations in the website. It's just to show you that you can do animations to make it more exciting, or if you think it's cheesy, I guess make it more cheesy. But for instance, actually, I already played that animation. I'm going to reload it. So I'm just scrolling because the animation stopped playing. So that there you can see like my picture kind of flies in. Here you can see I have these little pictures of other staff kind of swirling around. So directions to the lab, you can see these kind of images fly in from the side, and then these little icons coming in. And I'll kind of go over each of these sections, but I just want to show the animations because they stop playing once I scroll a little bit. So this is that kind of landing page area. Again, here's some kind of intro information that I don't necessarily tell everyone, but I think it's kind of nice just to include. So saying that we process more than 250,000 specimens, we have over 30 employees, that type of thing. Like I'm not going to necessarily say that, but I think it's a nice introduction to trainees, and so it's good to include in a website. Here's our leadership team for microbiology, and this is important, especially if the students have to interact with these people. So I like to have their names there and their pictures. So as you're a resident, if you teach path residents or whoever it is you're teaching, I'm sure there's a lot of, especially if they're new to the system, there's a lot of faces and names that they have to learn. And I think this is a good way to, again, consolidate everything in a website. So if they're like, oh, who is this person? Or you mentioned a name and I don't know who they are or what they do, they can always go to this website and find that. So these are our leadership team, like I said at the top, but down here I also have a link that has a list of all of our staff. And so these are texts that like path residents, if they're rotating through, they interact with all these texts. And again, look, you can see it's a huge list of names. They're not going to, they'll rotate for us, it's a long rotation for 12 weeks, but then they'll be off and they'll maybe a year later, 2 years later, they'll be on again. And so it's going to be hard for them to remember all these names. And so when they interact with them, they might know the name, but not know the face. And so this is a quick way for them to be like, if I say, what tech were you talking to when you had this question that you guys were discussing? And they could be like, oh, I was talking to Christina. I forgot what she looks like. And I tell them to like go back and tell Christina, this or that. And if they forget what they look like, they can always click here and it has a picture of that person. And so this is, again, just a good way for them to help learn those names and faces. Directions to the laboratory. This was an example I gave. So trainees, they have a hard time, or I always have to give like a lot of instructions on how to actually get to the laboratory. And so this is just an easy way for if they're like, how do I get to the lab? I just point them to this website. And so I can have text instructions, which I gave in email in the past, but in addition, I have these nice pictures. So, I'm not in an email, I'm not going to bother having these pictures every single time, but in a website, since I just do it once and forget it, it's really valuable to be able to have them here for people that are coming to the lab. And I've had numerous people say that, this is having the pictures is really helpful for them coming into the laboratory. And so here you can see I have instructions. These are all things that I would have to type out in the past in the email, like I was saying. And it's just a bunch of small instructions, but it's kind of annoying to keep typing over and over again. And then also, when they finally reach the lab, I say the window with the microbiology sign next to it is the lab. Whisper, hi, I'm a microbe enthusiast when you arrive, and wink twice. So again, adding some of that whimsy kind of fun element to it. Again, I'm not going to ever type this in an email when I'm telling someone how to get to the lab, but I can include it in the website. Just make it seem like it's a little more fun and inviting rotation. And then finally down here, my contact information. And then if people want to send me a message through here, they can. This just generates an email. And this is what I was saying, I think was making all those different companies block the site, is because I was asking for people's emails and phone numbers and what type of student they were, like if they're a med student or not. And so, uh, those sites just seemed kind of unhappy that I was doing that. But anyways, moving on to the next section. So like I was saying, there's different trainees that I see, and I'm sure that's true with many of you in pathology. Like you have random rotators, you have your core path residents, or If you're teaching other people, it's the same. You'll have your core group of people, but you'll have other types of people that might have slight variations to what you're teaching them. So I'll show you like for path residents. Here's an overview of what clinical microbiology is. A lot of people don't even necessarily know what clin micro is. They might think it's more of a laboratory, like bench research type of thing. Like they don't necessarily know what clinical laboratory practice is. And so here's just a brief overview. Just kind of a fun little aside is I generated this text, or at least I initially drafted it using AI. So you can do that too. Like if you have just some text that you need to generate that you don't really feel like typing, just use AI to generate it, and then you can just modify it to fit your needs. But here I have an overview for the residents. Evaluation, so I'm sure all of you know about the milestones for path education, but here I have a link that takes you straight to the milestones. Um, Also, since it's not inherent to everybody, the milestones, I'm sure you know the score that you get corresponds to your PGY level. Usually that's how it works. So like if you're getting level ones in your PGY1, that means you're doing a good job. So that's something I had to keep telling residents. Like if you're getting all ones in your PGY1, you're doing fine. It's not one doesn't mean you're doing horrible. Same if you're PGY2 and you're getting twos. And so that reminder is just built in right here, so I don't have to keep saying it over and over again to every single resident every time they rotate. Here I mentioned the presentation. So I give presentations, also the residents give presentations, which I'll show you on the other slide, the presentation slide. And then rotation requirements. So I'm sure all of you, when you're training people, have rotation requirements. You either have them, verbally that you tell them, or you have it, somewhere else. But here I just have it right here on the website that lists what I expect of the residents, how they can contact me. And then also, I'm sure all of you have like a guide for like an on-call guide. So we have that for our residents. I put that information here as well. So anytime they're paged or if they're on call and they have issues to deal with, these are just common issues, how to deal with them, how to think about them. And so it's all right here for them to view. And again, it's easily accessible anytime. If it's the middle of the night, they don't have to remember like, how do I access, MedHub and find that document, the on-call document. Like if they just go to bit.ly/UW microrotation, there it is. I'll just show you an example of this, like infectious disease fellows. You can see it's very similar. I have an overview, objectives, rotation requirements. The rotation requirements are slightly different, but overall using some of the similar resources that I'll show you in the other slide. And then here's another difference that I'll point out. So infectious disease fellows don't rotate through all the labs for us. They just rotate through micro. So they're not going through the core lab, molecular lab, heme lab. So I have to mention this for them because if they want to see like serologic testing, then that's a separate thing that I have to arrange for them. Or if they want to see molecular testing for HIV, herpes viruses, things like that, they're not going to see it through the micro rotation. I have to arrange that for them. So this helps when I'm orienting them. Having it on the website helps me remind them that if they want to see these things, to let me know, and I'll create a separate, or we'll arrange a separate experience for them. And then also, if I just forget to mention this to them, it's right here on the website for them to see. And then this is a different, kind of a different iteration. So the med students, this was a 2-week rotation that they do. It's 4 credits, so I have to tell them about, go into slightly more detail here. It's a pass-fail course, and then tell them what constitutes a pass or not. But similarly, I have rotation requirements saying what's required or not for them to pass. And then office hours and daily schedules. So the daily schedule I'll show you in the forum, and I'll show you kind of a clunky way that I did this that I probably could have just put it right here in the med student page, but it's a chance for me to show you the forum functionality. On presentations, I have all my presentations uploaded here. Like I mentioned, this is trainee and faculty presentations. So trainees, they would give a plate round. So this tells them what it is. So I'm sure you have trainees give presentations and you always have to tell them this information. And so I have all this information here, so I don't have to keep repeating it over and over, but like who are you giving the presentation to? When is it? If it's virtual, what's the link for it? All of this is here. So when they give the presentation, they can just click right here. All the attendees also can just click right here and access that same WebEx. Also the format of the presentation, what should they discuss? This is a case presentation, so how should they select their cases? So again, I'm just having all this information here. So they can access it anytime if they have questions. And also, so I don't have to just keep repeating it over and over again. A lab-wide presentation residents were doing as well, same kind of thing, have similar kinds of information. And then this is where I was saying I store some of my presentations for education. So here's my general lecture. So if it's like a med student rotating for a week or a farm resident, like for the farm residents, I usually give this talk, clinical lab testing and antimicrobial stewardship. So I'll go to this website that I'm showing you now. I'll click on this link, then I can give this presentation just right here. And they can see how I access it. So they don't have to ask for a copy of the presentation. They just know the website and they can access this lecture anytime they want. If they like hard copies, they can print it out. If they want to download a copy of it, they can download it. So like I said, a website doesn't interfere with any of those things. If people like hard copy and highlighting and writing notes on that, the website helps them access the material. They would just print it out. So that's that. The quizzes, I see someone had a question about, let's see, how do you build quizzes into the website, into your website? I don't know that Wix allows you to build quizzes into it. And so I use the separate, again, I like free. ClassMarker offers a free quiz for you to use. And so it's just a separate website. And it allows you to do multiple choice question quizzes that randomly generate the quiz. So I have like a 100 question quiz and it pulls from a database of 1,000 questions. One thing though is since I like free, I have to provide additional instructions with this quiz. So since the free version of this doesn't allow you to upload images, then any question that involves images, I have the separate link that says quiz images. And so these are the actual images. So if it says like, look at figure 2, then they would scroll to slide 2 and look at that. And so that's something that the website can help with too, is provide those instructions. I mean, image-based questions, you got to use a separate link as opposed to using ClassMarker. And then resources, pretty straightforward. This is just a bunch of links to different resources. So these are different like free training resources for residents to use or whatever trainees to use. So I have like a snapshot of what the web page looks like. I had it flip over to, and I typed this extra information here. And then here's a link to that actual thing. And so here's like the Emory cases that are really good if you're not familiar with them. They cover a lot of different specialties. But anyways, that's what the resources tab is. Here's different test directories that residents or other people might need to know of. We use ARUP and Mayo, so that's why I have them listed here as our reference labs. Here's our procedure management system. So we use policy tech. So just so, again, so residents can access it easily, this is how they would get to policy tech. And then these are some specific procedures within policy tech that I have links to kind of point them into those particular locations. So that's what that resources tab is. It's just a bunch of, if I scroll down, it's just a bunch of different resources for them to be able to click on. And then finally, the forum. I initially was hoping there would be, with online teaching and things like that, I was hoping to add that social component and have more interactivity, but it really didn't work out. The trainees, their feedback was that they didn't want anything permanent, like their thoughts permanent, put into the forum, and they were kind of afraid to use it. And so I don't require that. But just so you know, there's forum functionality. One thing I was doing for the resident presentations, like these Wednesday plate morning rounds or morning plate rounds, I was logging all the prior cases that they did. And here I kind of logged out so I could show you that this also has a login feature. So the forum requires you to log in. You can turn that off too if you don't want. But this was how I was doing it. I was typing the topic that they talked about and who spoke about it. That way they don't present the same case twice in a row. I'll show you a new way that I'm doing that with a different website. And then also for the med student rotation, this is kind of the clunky way I was saying. So this is like a limitation of this particular format of the forum. So I wanted each day to have um, the specific activities that the student had to do. So like on day 2, they would review this presentation, preview these slides, preview these images, and work on their quiz. So and I wanted it linked so they could just go to day 2 and this is all the stuff they have to do. So here they can preview the presentation. These are the virtual glass slides. So those of you that are teaching pathology, this is how you can do like a more hands-on approach, is having virtual full slide images. And so the students would go here. So for day 2, they had to preview these different virtual glass slides. This is just another example. Um, I guess this is showing an example of how it's like a little slow too sometimes. But anyways, this is how you could do like if you're teaching histology. And so I was saying it's clunky because in the forum, they don't let me organize this by name. And so you can see like it's out of order. Like day 1 is here, day 2 is there, day 3 is down here. And so there are some of those issues that you may encounter depending on what you're trying to do. Like I can only organize it by recent activity, newest, things like that. All right. So that website is what I primarily use, and some feedback for that is that I was trying to get is it easy to navigate? Most people said it was extremely, very, or slightly easy to navigate. No one said it was hard to use. Did you find it helpful? Again, everyone found it helpful. Nobody found it unhelpful. And how do you prefer to receive educational materials in general? Most people, and they took the survey after using the website. So most people said they prefer to get their materials through the website, a large majority of them. Some said email. One or a couple people said they still like hard copies. So like I said, there still is that spectrum. These are youngish students, so it's not like they're not familiar with digital technologies, but some people still want hard copy, or a couple of students apparently wanted verbal educational materials primarily. And this is just some feedback. So if you're building these things, just so things to think about. So make sure your websites are well organized. Make sure that people can find everything, easy to use. Links. You want it to be self-explanatory. This is probably more helpful as like, what did you not like about the website? So for this question, most people actually put they didn't this kind of thing, like they didn't not much or no complaints, you're not applicable. So I didn't just type all that out because probably more important is for you to be able to see some of the constructive stuff. So some stuff is buried deep inside the website. So again, make sure your websites are easy to use and navigate and pretty clear. This person said, I'm used to using Canvas. So this is like what I was saying before as a downside is if you have all these different websites and different things, people have to learn how to use them. And so this person said, using that website took some time getting used to. And so this is just an example of that type of disadvantage to websites. They said sometimes, this person said sometimes it was slow. Clicking on rotation buttons multiple times wouldn't go there. So I think Wix is kind of slower, and so that's an issue more with the server, especially the free version. I think if you pay, they allow it to be a little faster. And this person said a few links didn't work. All right. Quickly, I'll just show you the separate website. So again, just to make it easy to access, I use the URL shortener. So this one is bit.ly/mighty micro. So this is an interdisciplinary conference, and I built this separately because the target audience is different. So it's not a bunch of different trainees. It's more like secretaries who have to schedule this interdisciplinary conference, and also the presenters who have to give presentations, and then also the attendees. And so here you can see the introductory information, like what is this interdisciplinary conference? It's a case-based conference. Where is it located? It's in this room we call Thorngate, and also WebEx. So here again is the link right to WebEx. Sometimes we don't always hold the conference, and I don't want to have to keep telling people when we have it or don't have it. So in this website, and this site builder is actually from Google. This is Google Sites as opposed to Wix. So you're seeing an example of Google Sites. I'm able to use this Google Calendar, which is how I schedule this. And I just type canceled anytime it's canceled. So this is nice. You can have this calendar directly embedded into the site. They don't have to click a link and it takes you to the calendar. You can see it right here. So you can see we're going to start up this conference again on the 23rd. Techs wanted to know how to submit a case that they can learn about. So here, if they click transmit now, then it'll take them to a REDCap survey, and they can put the case information there. Here's recently presented cases. So like I was showing you before, it's kind of clunky. I put this in the forum, and you had to like multiple clicks to get there. And then I had to type each one individually there. Here you can see on this front page, you can see what was presented immediately in the website. No clicking, it's just right here. And they have a scrollable thing. So again, this is a Google Sheets document. And so that's kind of why it's integrated with Google Sites. And so it allows you to show this information like this. And same with the feedback. This is a Google Forms thing. So again, they don't have to click anywhere. They can provide feedback right here, and they can click submit right here. So it's very streamlined. I also down here have a bunch of links to all the different types of people that would be involved in presenting. So again, I like to have, names to faces. So these are like all of our residents here. And the residents might not necessarily know our ID fellows or ID pharmacy residents. And so when they click here, they can immediately see who the fellows are. Here I have a flyer. So this was kind of initially when this was just starting. This was a flyer to show people the conference. I was constantly being asked by observers who wanted to attend how to attend, and there's this form that they have to fill out, and there's all these different fields that they have to fill out, but I'm the one who has to fill it out. So I always had to tell them, like in an email, I had to type all this out. Can you tell me, like, are you a job candidate? Are you representative of Epic? Like that kind of thing. And so now I just put it all into this website. I just direct observers to this website and say, give me this information that this website is telling them to tell me. Here's Thorngate. Here's where the conference is physically. Again, I have step-by-step directions with pictures. And then presenters, here I have instructions to the presenters. It's an interdisciplinary conference. It's very hard to coordinate all these different groups. And so it takes a lot of kind of different instructions for all of them. And so that's what this is kind of putting that all together. So again, I have all this information, anything that's related to this particular conference, Mighty Micro, I have it all here. So this is just an example of a specific use case of a website. All right. So finally, how can I make a website? So you might think that there's not much time left, and that's true, but it is really quite easy to make a website. There's all these different website builders. I showed you an example of Wix. That's the first site I showed you, in Google Sites. Those are the ones that I've used. There's many other examples. I've also used Site123. That's a little more restricted than Google Sites. Google Sites is what I'm going to show you. And just a reminder, your institution also may be able to build websites for you too. I personally like to do it myself because I like to edit it on the spot, like whenever I want to. So like if there's little typos or things like that, I don't want to have to tell someone and then wait like 2 weeks or whatever, and then have to go back and make sure that they made the change. I like to just do it myself and publish it immediately. But your own institution might be able to do it as well. When you're looking at the different platforms, there's different things to consider. Obviously, is it free or is there a cost? Usually if there's a cost, it's monthly. You want to look at if they're well established or if they're new. How easy is it to use, their functionality? Ads, like I mentioned, Wix has that kind of annoying little banner. Downtime, I haven't really experienced downtime, but sometimes they might have like server upgrades or things like that. Usually they'll do that like late in the middle of the night, so you don't have to worry about that. And then speed, Wix is like a little slower for me to use as a builder. And also when users are using it, they say the website is slower as opposed to Google Sites. All right, so I'm just going to show you Google Sites here. And so to get here, I'm already logged into Google. I have a Google account. But if you don't, you just create a Google account, and then you can type Google Sites, if I could spell that. And then if you click here, that's the website that I was showing you. So Google Sites is pretty easy to use, which is why I'm choosing it as an example. Here you can see I have that Mighty Micro site that I made, but we'll start with the blank site. And this is kind of the interactive part. So does anyone want to title our new site or give our new site a title? You can just type it in the chat. For the sake of time, I can come up with a title, demo site, site name, let's see, SAP example. So you can already see the functionality for especially Google Sites. It's very easy. It's kind of like using PowerPoint. If any of you know how to use PowerPoint, you can build a site in here. It's super easy. The next thing we probably want to do is populate this with some content. You also could do like design elements. Like let's say I don't like that gray. I want this like burgundy color. Or you can add a picture back here as well. There's more limitations to this versus Wix. Like if I wanted to change this to any font, they don't have as many options. So that might be one reason why you want to go with Wix. But now, like I said, you just populate it with whatever content you want. Here they have these pre-made content blocks. So like I can add pictures here. Let's say I want to add an image. You can search Google Images. Let's say we want to add a nice ASCP image. Not sure how these are ASCP. Maybe that stands for something else. So you can see it's super easy to use. Like if you're, again, just having instructions to your office, you could just say, my office is over here. Put images here, type how to get to your office. So that's images, text, that's pretty straightforward. You can also include like buttons, links to different things. So let's say, I don't know, maps, google.com. So now we have a button. One thing that makes sites easy to use is you can see how the button's snapped to this particular size, so you don't have to worry about the sizing of it. Like if I have it down here, it'll make it like that particular location. But that is a downside. Like let's say I don't want a button this wide, I want it just real small. You can't do that in Google Sites, but you can do that in Wix. Google, like I was showing you, they have their own suite of things like Google Docs and slides and sheets. And so it allows you to embed these pretty easily. This was an example I created just for this presentation. This is like from the ASCP website. But you can see that it shows a little preview of that document, which is nice. And yeah, you can have a map here too, like if you wanted to show your location. Let's say we were in Paris. That would be very nice. So if they're out of your institution, you can have a map like that and then have directions to your office. You can embed little YouTube clips. Like I showed you before, you can embed presentations and sheets and things like that. So to publish this, you just simply click publish. You can change whatever the website you want it to be, but here they defaulted it to ASCP example. So this is what the web address would be. And then I click publish. And now it's published, just like that. We have a website, and if you want to view it, I click View Published Site, and this is what it looks like. So right now, if any of you were to type this into your browsers, you could access this website. So it's really that easy. In a couple of seconds, I created this website. It obviously doesn't look good, but you can see how simple it is. Like if you have the content, you just put it right in here. Here's the link to that Google Maps. I click there and Google Maps. So super simple. Um, Hopefully this presentation has given you a bunch of different ideas on how this can be useful to you and just how easy it is to be able to do this. I do want to make sure that there's time for questions. And so it looks like there's a couple minutes left. Are there any questions? It looks like there's some people put stuff in the chat. How do you build quizzes? Oh, I think I answered that one. Can you take students to Canvas or Moodle for quizzes? Yeah, so if Canvas has, and I don't know Moodle, but if they're their own websites, you can, like how I just created a link here, you can always link out to them. I don't think, as far as I know, Wix and Google Sites, they're not integrated with Canvas or other softwares. Like I said, I'm not familiar with Moodle, so I don't think it'll be integrated. Like you could have a quiz like right here where they don't have to go out of the site, but you could always have a link to it. Are there reasons to use both Canvas and a core website? So I don't use Canvas. I know our university med students, they use Canvas, and that one person said that they preferred Canvas. I actually have seen it and I think it's a little ugly myself. Like I don't like it myself. So I don't use Canvas at all when I'm teaching. I just especially or for anyone but the med students and they're using Canvas, I don't have them use Canvas. I just direct them to my website and they're pretty much happy with it. Even that person that said they preferred Canvas, like they said the website was easy to use and they were just used to Canvas is all. But I'm pretty sure Canvas, like you can, like I said, I don't use it, but I think you can have quiz questions like built right into it. You potentially can do that with Google Sites. Like you could have that Google form be like in the site that I showed you for the Mighty Micro, how I had a form down here. I think Google Forms, you can make it like you can set these as correct and incorrect answers. So you could have like a little quiz here that way. Um, Can you comment on using copyrighted material in a site or is attribution sufficient? So that's just like general copyright uh, rules. So I don't have any specialized knowledge on that. I primarily use these sites for education, like local education. I guess aside from what I'm showing you right now, but I'm showing you like how to build the site. I'm not using the content like you may have seen potentially copyrighted material, but that wasn't really the focus of this. But the whatever copyright rules would apply. So you potentially could get copyright strikes or whatever. Someone sees that you're using that material and they don't want you to. But if you're just using it locally, like you're saying an image or table from a journal, I'm sure you could put it there and it would be fine. Because otherwise, you would be showing them that same table or image just within the journal. As far as the website ownership, are you allowed to take it with you, so to speak? Actually, that's one thing I was going to mention. Just for the sake of time, I didn't mention, but for sorry, where's my presentation? So for like the different things. So your institution. So one of the main reasons why I didn't go with my institution is just because I like to edit it directly. The other thing is not that I'm planning to leave, but if I were to leave, I have my websites with me. I've created them with an account, a Google account. It's a new Google account that's just UW micro rotation. And so I have that, I own that. And so if I go somewhere, I still can access it. If my institution built it within its intranet, then, once I leave, I wouldn't be able to access that. And I obviously couldn't tell the tech people to like continue to work on it because I would no longer work here. So that's another potential advantage of building it in one of these. The problem is now it's these companies that have your data. So like Wix, like I said, I'm using the free version, but if they suddenly decide to charge, like if they're like, if you want to add one more page, it's going to cost you, like you have to do a subscription model, then that is a challenge for these free sites. And so that's why I was saying you do want to think about like the longevity of it. Like if they're well established, it's less likely, I feel like, that they're gonna randomly suddenly say, okay, we're gonna start charging you. But some new companies, that is like how they work. Like they try to get as many free users as possible. And once they get enough users, then they're like, okay, we're gonna start charging for this functionality or that functionality. And then so it's not great. So you do want to be careful whatever you decide because especially if you build out a huge site, if you whatever you choose you will be probably putting in time into building that over time. And so you hopefully it's something that you trust and that they won't like price gouge you later. As far as okay, that was the question. All right, any other questions? I think we're pretty much at time now. And then just some final tips. You can use a URL shortener, like I said. So if you use a free version and you're not claiming your own domain, like the URL shorteners can help at least make it memorizable. Show the most relevant info. So I did create that separate site that I showed you for the conference just because all the other stuff is not relevant to people. So you might need a new site or at least push the relevant info to the beginning. Not all the pages that you create need to be in the navigator. And so, I had all those different links in the navigator, but a lot of times the website builder will automatically put it there. You don't have to have like 20 different links if you have that many pages. You can just put whatever pages you need in the navigator. This is important. I'm sure you know this, but anything you upload, assume that it's always going to be public and permanent. So don't put like PHI and things like that, and then like delete it later and be like, okay, I deleted it because it was sent to the servers. Assume that they have it in their servers and they can access it somehow. If it's really important information, I would save an offline version of it just in case the company starts charging you or whatever, they go out of business. And then make the info to minimize your work, make the info that you put in there as timeless as possible. So for instance, I said we test over 250,000 specimens. So I don't say the exact number that we tested this year because then I'm going to have to update it every single year. So try to do that type of thing so you don't have to keep updating your website. And then periodically check the interface as a user. So I usually access it as a builder because I'm trying to edit it. But just remember that the user experience might be different. And also, it's even better if you know what incognito mode is, access it through incognito mode. Because, for instance, for Google Sites, when I access it, I can see all those sheets and slides and Word documents that I've put in there because I'm logged into Google. But if I weren't logged in, sometimes the sharing doesn't allow me to see it embedded in the website. And so it's always good to just access it periodically in incognito mode just to see what your trainees are seeing. All right, so that's pretty much this presentation. Thanks everyone again for attending. I hope this has been useful for you. Like I said, just start easy. You don't have to make a huge website. Just whatever thing that you think is annoying that you keep saying over and over that would benefit you, just direct people to your website that you've created. Again, it's super easy to use, just like using PowerPoint. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm at UW. Yeah, so thanks again, everyone.